Hello, everyone. You're listening to Cinema 5000. How's it going? It's me, Mallory, your host, here to talk to you about just four films on this episode. We're at 5,780 films. It hasn't been the most productive week as far as watching movies for me, but with the weekend coming up, I'm fairly certain I'll be getting into some films, but a trip to the theater, I don't know if that's really in the cards anytime soon for me. There's not like a lot of new movies coming out that I'm really interested in for at least a couple of weeks. And as we head into June, I'm looking forward to the new Wes Anderson film, and I may have a chance to go down to Boston like for one day to see something down there. But I think this is a weird like start to the summer movie season, at least for me, and like what interests me. And like yeah, I'm just not sure what's in the cards for like newer releases, but luckily, there's plenty of films I haven't seen before. And in this episode, I do check a couple boxes for things I've been wanting to see for a while. And we're going to start with something that has been coming for a very long time for me to watch for the first time. It's Friday from 1995, directed by F. Gary Gray. The tagline is, "A lot can go down between Thursday and Saturday." Craig and Smokey are two guys in Los Angeles hanging out on their porch on a Friday afternoon, smoking and drinking, looking for something to do. This stars Ice Cube as Craig and Smokey, who's played by Chris Tucker. Just a hangout comedy of sorts with lots of colorful characters who come along. We meet John Witherspoon, who's Craig's father, and then Neil Long, who is like the hot girl Debbie in the film. We also meet Debo, Tommy Lister Jr., the late great Tommy Lister Jr., who the two guys definitely fear because he's going to take advantage of them, take anything they've got. Regina King is also in the film, as well as Paula J. Parker, Faison Love, and some other familiar actors that, I recognize from movies back in the 90s. Like Bernie Mac is in this, yeah. And like I said, I had never seen this movie. Somehow, despite its notoriety over the years, like I knew of it as a kid when it came out, and I just never got the chance to see it. It was a hot renter at the video store I worked with, and I mean, admittedly, I was a little young to see it when it was in its heyday of popularity, but it's also, stood the test of time in a lot of ways as far as like a black comedy film in the 90s, or just a popular film from the 90s in general. It did get two sequels. F. Gary Gray, like really notable filmmaker and director. Like he has directed so many music videos, like every hot music video from the 90s that was, maybe hip hop R&B. Like F. Gary Gray was probably the director for it. And then in his career, like he directed Fate of the Furious and The Italian Job, the remake, of course, and Straight Outta Compton, and Set It Off as well. Set It Off, like the music video for that one, and the music videos for Friday as well. And I mean, there's not really much to say about Friday. It is just a hangout comedy. In some ways, it's a stoner comedy too. But I think Ice Cube and Chris Tucker have really great chemistry together, and Chris Tucker is really hilarious. Just a great performance, and you can see why Chris Tucker became Chris Tucker. I mean, he did a lot of movies after this one. I don't know if he was necessarily in anything big before this. Like, I want to say maybe just bit parts, but like Chris Tucker then goes on to do, The Fifth Element and then Rush Hour films. He's in Jackie Brown. He was in Dead Presidents, it looks like, from the same year, 95. I don't recall him in that, but he was in Money Talks. Like, that was like his big starring picture after this. I haven't seen Money Talks, from 97. Like, I just remember him like being the featured player. So, there's so many recognizable people in this. Like I said, Regina King's in this movie as like a young sister, and she's a young kid. And it's funny how like, we have like these wonderful performers who are now just like big names in that respect, but they had to start somewhere. And this is fun. This is like I'll say it's like kind of a classic comedy at this point, and it may not work for everybody, but I found there's plenty to find funny in Friday. I laughed a number of times. I was amused by it. It maybe gets a little slow near the last third of the film, but I didn't mind it at all. I gave Friday 3 stars, and if you haven't seen it, like, you should probably see it. I've been meaning to rewatch another 90s comedy that I haven't seen in a very long time. Do you remember Booty Call? I remember thinking Booty Call was really funny, but has that stood the test of time? That's the question. I'm not sure I'll watch the other Friday sequels. Who knows? But, like, Ice Cube went on to do movies like Barbershop. Like, he's had a lengthy acting career, from his post-rap career as a performer. So in Chris Tucker, like I said, he's gone on to do so many things. So yeah, check out Friday. If you haven't seen Friday, it's a good time. I actually watched this on a Friday night, so. Okay, up next we have Bonjour Tristesse. It says it's a 2024 film because I believe that's when it played, like, the Toronto International Film Festival, but I just saw it in theaters last week. It's directed by Durga Chubose. There is no tagline for this film. At the height of summer, 18-year-old Cecile is relaxing by the French seaside with her father and falling in love with her new boyfriend. The arrival of her late mother's enigmatic friend turns her world upside down. Lily McInerney plays Cecile, and she's, I think, very well cast as Cecile. She's a quiet girl, who's, like, amused by people around her father, and her father, he's, like, a very slyly seductive person. They don't make him out to be a sleaze or anything like that. He's just a charming man, and he's played by Klaus Bang. Good casting, I think, as far as Cecile and her father, Raymond. I liked them together. They felt like a father and daughter. But then emerging into the picture is Anne, who's played by Chloe Sevigny, and she's, like, a fashion designer who is very, very, how shall I say it? She's just, like, such a character. She walks in the room and you understand everything about her, from the way she dresses to the way she holds herself to the way she talks. And Cecile and Raymond know Anne because she was a friend back in the day of Raymond and Cecile's departed mother. Her mother has passed away when she was a young child, so she's really just lived with her father, and as he's gone from relationship to relationship over the years, she's seen these women come and go. But once Anne comes into the picture, it kind of creates a conflict. That's a conflict of who really gets the attention of Raymond, who's, like, really the central figure in this family picture, this disjointed picture in some respects. This movie could have been very sleazy and, like, saucy in certain ways, but I think it takes the subtle route and does it pretty well. I have seen the film version of this story of Bonjour Tristesse, directed by Otto Preminger from the 50s, and I did like that film. I gave that one 3 stars, and I'm also giving this one 3 stars. But I will say the atmosphere and the way this movie is, showing this story and setting up the scene is really, really beautiful, and it's not, like, too on the nose. I mean, it's taking place in the French, like, seaside, and of course it's lovely. There's great sound design, great use of color, and the way that the certain notions of these characters are telegraphed through their costuming is, like, really fantastic. There was things I noticed about every character, little things that I thought was like, oh, this movie was made with a lot of care. There is a slightness to it as well, because the movie really doesn't want to overwhelm. And like I said, this could have been sleazy. A different filmmaker would have made this a little bit more like, maybe, like, trying to hint at some kind of incest or something between the father and the daughter, which is not what's happening at all in this version of the film. And I don't remember the Otto Preminger version having that either, but I think, like, a more probably modern version would do that, and luckily this does not. I think there's a lot of restraint in the filmmaking here that I really appreciated, and this is the kind of movie that, I mean, I've mentioned this many times, of, like, seeing films where I feel like, oh yeah, it's a Canopy movie, where you log in a Canopy and it's there and kind of thrives on Canopy. It's not like a Tubi movie, it's not an HBO Max movie or any of those other, like, sort of related channel streaming services like your Peacocks and your Paramount Plus. This is a little bit more high class, and I think the choices made here in telling this story are, yeah, definitely classy, really tasteful. This is a movie that is rated R, but there's only, like, a couple moments that, make it a little more than a PG-13. It probably could have been a PG-13. But I think you need to have those moments anyway because you're talking about, a coming of age kind of story for this 18-year-old girl. And also the changes in relationships and how dynamics between people evolve. And I do want to mention also, I thought the score for this was really beautiful and it reminded me quite a bit of the film Call Me By Your Name. I can't blame them for trying to, do something maybe similar if that was the intent. But regardless, it's a really lovely film. It's really easy to watch. And I liked all the performances in it, even though like it kind of left me wanting more, but maybe that's the trick of the film anyway. So I gave this 3 stars, and I think this is something I would watch again. And if you're looking for like an easygoing kind of film set in a lovely landscape with beautiful characters, oh yeah, this is the movie for you. It's also it's a nice film that lives in its spaces and really gives you, the viewer, time to take in what it's trying to tell you through its visual language. And I really, really appreciate that about the film. And also, I do need to say, Chloe Sevigny is like wonderful in this, like so wonderful. This is one of my favorite performances from her ever. I'll watch anything she's in anyway. I mean, she's not like, Meryl Streep levels of fantastic, acting, performing, whatever, but I always enjoy her in what I see her doing. And in this, I think this is like, top 3, just like a really fantastic performance. And she gives so much to this part. And I think she was like just such a terrific choice for the role of Anne. Okay, so up next we have The Assessment. This is another film that 2024 it says, but I think this had a release earlier this year as like a mild theatrical release. This did play at my local theater. I didn't get the chance to see it. They only had like 2 showings a day. The same thing happened with Bonjour Tristesse. And so I just didn't get the chance to see it. So The Assessment is a 2025 release, though it says 2024 on Letterboxd, and it's directed by Fleur Fortune. The tagline is, "Would you pass?" In a climate change ravaged world, a utopian society optimizes life, including parenthood assessments. A successful couple faces scrutiny by an evaluator over 7 days to determine their fitness for childbearing. This has some notable actors in it. It stars Elizabeth Olsen as Mia and Himish Patel as Aryan, and they're a husband and wife, and Mia and Aryan are living together and they want to have a child. And now, unfortunately, the way the world works is that they have to get approved to have a child, and the approver person going through their assessment is played by Alicia Vikander. It's this character, Virginia. And Virginia, essentially what she does is she puts the couple through the ringer as portraying what is essentially their child. So they have to take care of her. And this is where the movie, as a concept, I was kind of interested in it, like what's it going to do? But I think a lot of the execution for how it does this is really badly done. I just didn't really I had a feeling this movie wanted to confuse like the viewer on like how old Virginia's portrayal of a child is supposed to be, and it has a lot of ups and downs for the couple. And I found it a bit confusing how the movie was going through the motions of this assessment. And I'm gonna get slightly spoilery here. There's a question of will they pass or will they not, and I think like they didn't do a good job at all. So like when things didn't really go their way with the progress, it like didn't surprise me. I was just kind of like, this is not good. Now I'm not a parent, but I have been a babysitter for many years, and I have a sister with small children, and there's just so many things they did that I found like just really like, yeah, you didn't do a good job there. It's like no surprise. I just found that confusing because I think it would be the opposite. They would be so overbearing to the degree that they make sure absolutely everything in their power is done to protect Virginia and make sure she is raised right. But that doesn't happen, even if this is supposed to be a realistic thing where parenting is hard. I just found that a bit confusing as an idea for what this story is. Now, even setting that aside, I think a lot of the dialogue and the way this movie talks about parenting and how things evolved were just very predictable for a movie of this sort. I have a lot of questions of why the motivations of this film are done like that. And then there's a couple reveals that happen in the last third of the film. One of them I found very offensive and terrible, but even I can set that aside because there's another revelation later too that just kind of pissed me off because it did something to Virginia that I thought was really cruel. So then I'm left with thinking this movie is both just very simplistic and not believable, a little bit offensive, and also just pathetic in how it like made this story for this character Virginia like really evolve. And so yeah, I'm not a fan of this film. It's like if I take each of those things and maybe don't let them get in the way of me enjoying it individually, like if you take that out, it's like there's still too many things going on with this movie that I just found either predictable or badly done or just like despicable as a filmmaker for a device of that sort. I want to mention that in this film there is an assault that happens that I want people to know, in case that might bother you, it does happen in here, and it's in the rating too. I found this to be a confused mess of a film. Nobody was really good in this, and Alicia Vikander, like, I think she's a good actress, but I don't think this really does a lot for her as a performer. Neither Elizabeth Olsen and Himesh Patel. I mean, I've never been like really a fan of him, but I think he kind of deserves better than what this role does as the husband. Like, oh, come on. It just feels like a regressive, silly mess of a film. Like, the best I could say about it is the production design is at least interesting. But then again, it's kind of not, because if you're telling me this is taking place in a climate change ravaged world, it's like, yeah, that's what it's going to look like. So as much as I like had all these problems with it, I wouldn't give it 1 star. I gave it 2 stars. I feel like that's fair, because like I can't recommend this movie like at all. And I will say, even as these things were really not working for me on multiple levels, like I didn't hate the film. It was still fairly watchable, but just the boxes it was ticking as it went along, I just was kind of like, yeah, that's what I thought would happen. Yeah, okay. You didn't really try much. It'd be so interesting if somebody like redid a concept of this movie and like actually had some better ideas, or maybe made it more of a comedy. Because the concept itself like seems like a hilarious thing, especially since when I was at the Independent Film Festival of Boston, I saw a number of short films. I didn't talk about it on the podcast just because some of them are not really available online, and it was just like kind of like, well, how do I talk about these things that kind of aren't present? But one of them was a short film about a baby experiment where this girl like takes care of this baby doll for a class project, and then she starts to learn things about like motherhood through the experience of that, and then also talking to her single mother. And that short film itself, like I felt like had so much more to say about parenting than this movie, like truly. So yeah, I'm not a fan of The Assessment, which is technically from 2024, directed by Fleur Fortune. Just not a successful film for me, like I said, on multiple levels. And it looks like it's actually kind of popular, I guess. It has like a 3.6. I say popular in the realm of like people enjoying it, but I just found it to be very silly overall. I think silly is the right word for it. Okay. Up next, and our final film for the episode, is The Front Room. Hey, it's another movie about parenting. From 2024, directed by Max Eggers and Sam Eggers. And if you must know, they are the twin half-brothers of Robert Eggers. Great. Okay, the tagline is, "All hell moves in. Everything goes to hell for newly pregnant Belinda after her mother-in-law moves in. As the diabolical guest tries to get her claws on the child, Belinda must draw the line somewhere." This stars Brandy Norwood. Love Brandy as Belinda. Now, I don't know about you guys, but back in the day when Brandy came out, pre-Moesha, I was just such a big fan of Brandy. Like Brandy, her music videos, she was just cool. Like you want to be friends with Brandy. And then she did Moesha, and I don't know about her acting career in the years since Moesha, the TV show, but when I saw that Brandy was in this movie, I was like, I have to see it. I love Brandy. But it took me a long while to watch this movie finally, because when it was in theaters, I just like really didn't have the chance to get to see it. It was kind of like, oh, I do want to see that, but this is timing. And it's been on Max for a while, and I did try to watch it once, and I was like, it was really late at night, and it's a movie that's kind of dark. I mean, like color wise, so I was just kind of like, this isn't this isn't going to keep me awake, unfortunately. But now that I've watched The Front Room, let me tell you about it. So Belinda playing, Brandy playing Belinda, she is married to the character Norman, who's played by Andrew Burnap, who I just saw in the Snow White movie as the love interest, the prince. He's not really a prince, but he's a prince. The one with Rachel Zegler. So they are a couple that's kind of struggling. Like, they don't really have the money. She's pregnant. She's not happy with her job. Things aren't going so well. And the baby is coming soon. Unfortunately, things have happened to Norman's life in that his father, who lived with Solange, who is his stepmother, his father has now passed away. Now, Solange is played by Catherine Hunter. If you guys don't know who Catherine Hunter is, go ahead and look her up. She's an interesting actress. She's very much an actress. She has been in a couple movies recently that you may be familiar with. She's in The Tragedy of Macbeth with Denzel Washington, and she's in Megalopolis with Adam Driver. She is not like the lead performer in those movies. So in this one, as Solange, oh boy, Catherine Hunter is doing something I don't think many actresses can achieve, which is being very, very bad and naughty and campy and crazy and getting certain bodily things on herself and performing in this movie. And it's ridiculous. And I think she's like fantastic at it. It is such a memorable performance. She's playing like the worst person ever. And she is torturing Belinda at every turn. It's funny, like, her husband doesn't necessarily have to have this devotion to taking care of Solange to some degree, because it's just the stepmother, but because he's a man, he's like not portrayed as being strong-willed enough to just say, you know what, Solange, I've had enough of your shit. Pun intended. But it all falls on Belinda. That's the problem. So he's like, I gotta go to work. I gotta get this promotion. Gotta get this done. I gotta please everybody. And Belinda is stuck at home with the baby and Solange. And being a mother is hell. It is so bad. And Solange is doing things to ruin Belinda's strength to keep it together and be a good parent and be a good person, because Solange just pushes her buttons and she knows what she's doing. And it's not just that Solange is wanting to be nasty to her and take over her life. Solange in general, we know for a fact, like, she is just bonkers. Like, it's a really bad situation, because unfortunately Solange has a lot of money and she's like giving it to the family on the condition that, you know, let me live with you. I need to be with you. Now, the funny thing about this movie, so many connections to different things. It reminds me so much of this movie that I don't think anybody really remembers, or maybe I gotta hope that like maybe somebody who saw this movie, who's a critic, maybe talked about this. But there's a movie from the late 90s called Hush, which has Gwyneth Paltrow and Jessica Lange in it, and it's a very similar kind of story where you have this overbearing, like, you know, mother-in-law figure who makes the wife or a pregnant woman like awful. And in that movie, Jessica Lange specifically is like wanting to kill Gwyneth Paltrow's character. And in this one, it really seems like Solange is trying to break up the family in some ways and then get the baby. And Belinda has a number of visions about these things. So this is like the campy pseudo horror cousin with lots of really disgusting fluids and such, to companion to the movie Hush, which, yeah, nobody's seen that movie. If I go on Letterboxd just for the sake of conversation, The Front Room has been seen by 37,000 people. The movie Hush, however, let's look it up. I'm just so curious. from 1998, directed by Jonathan Darby, has only 19,000 watches. And actually some of my friends have seen it. It's on Tubi right now. I'm so curious like how that plays in contrast and in relation to The Front Room now that I've seen both of them. But yeah, The Front Room, is it worth watching? That may be the question. I think it's a pretty standardly produced film. Like there's really nothing about it that really strikes me as being special about it. Now, however, there's a certain campiness to it and its nastiness and like what Solange is doing that I found fun, and like, you know, it's sad, but it's also, this is the movie that's, I mean, Solange is literally winking at Belinda behind the husband's back, you know, and it's like trying to be this very darkly humor-filled film about religion and the burden of being a mother. And you know, I will recommend this movie. I'm gonna give it 3 stars because I had a fun time watching this, and Solange is just such a ridiculous character that you know, it's great that Catherine Hunter delivered in this, regardless of this not even being a very notable film. You're like, truly, there's nothing about this that is going to work for everybody, but if you're into like sort of a dark, campy, ridiculous thing with all this awful shit happening, again, pun intended, this is maybe the movie for you. And I will say, if like you're a little sensitive about treatments of the elderly, maybe this isn't the movie for you. If you're a fan of Brandy, maybe this is the movie for you. I don't know. It just kind of worked for me, and I know it doesn't have a great reputation. That being said, yeah, 3 stars for The Front Room from 2024, directed by Max Eggers and Sam Eggers. And yes, definitely a dark comedy, more than anything, not a straight horror film. It's goofy, it's crazy. I enjoyed myself, and I will say, I think this would be a pretty decent double feature with the movie Ma, starring Octavia Spencer. Different kind of stories, but also very ridiculous. That one's got some murder in it, though. So, yeah, this is a little different. But yeah, I had a good time watching The Front Room. What can I say? And yeah, go Brandy. Like Brandy. What other movies is Brandy? Oh yeah, she's in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. How could I forget? Oh my gosh, I remember that being a big deal. It was like, Brandy's in a horror movie. Yeah. Yeah, I missed the 90s, but what can I say? I recommend Friday. I recommend Bonjour Tristesse, the new version. Don't recommend The Assessment, but I do recommend The Front Room, though, with the notion that you know it's a dark comedy. And maybe I recommend Hush. I'm not sure. I do remember about Hush, like, I want to say Roger Ebert liked this movie. Maybe he was just a very big Gwyneth Paltrow fan in the late 90s. Who wasn't? External reviews. I gotta look this up. I want to say he gave it 3 stars. Oh gosh. No, he gave it 2 stars. Never mind. Forget it. Hush is the kind of movie you walk in, the first 10 minutes, know exactly where it's going, and hope devoutly that you're wrong. It's the one of those devouring women movies where the villainess never plays a scene without a drink and a cigarette, and the hero is inattentive to the victim to the point of a dementia. Wow, Roger. Okay. Yeah, they didn't like it. But, oh wait, now the question is, did Gene Siskel like it? I'm going to have to look it up. That'll take too long. I just remember it being on their show and them talking about it. Maybe they both gave it thumbs down. Anyway, the video store I worked at had a copy of Hush, and I remember watching it and thinking it was not great, though I am so curious. It's one of those movies that's on Tubi, so maybe I'll have to give it a look. Anyway, that's the episode. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk about more movies soon. Again, I'm not really sure what the future is for like newer releases, but coming out in a couple weeks, I think I am going to go see Hurry Up Tomorrow, despite me really hating the trailer and thinking Trey Edward Schultz is not a great filmmaker. Maybe I'll just see it for, you know, the fact that I can have a discussion about it. And yeah, I think that's it for now. I've got tons of movies, of course, I can watch, and I'll get into Tubi and find other wacky shit I haven't seen before and discuss it like I do. Anyway, I'm Mallory. Thank you so much for listening. Cinema5000.com is the website. Cinema 5000 on YouTube. Subscribe if you're on YouTube, if you have not. cinema5kpod@gmail.com is the email address if you want to send a note. I'm also on Bluesky. Follow Cinema5000. And I will talk to you when I talk to you about anything else that's going on the next episode. Okay, bye.